Welcome to the 100th episode of the Mike on Much podcast. Joining us on the phone from Europe is our friend and trusty producer for the 100th time, Max Kerman. Max, how's it going?
I'm just a lad from Liverpool, you know. We were just a couple young guys making music, you know. We were just playing guitar. We didn't think it was a big deal, you know.
Oh my God.
You're really going all out for the 100th episode. We got voices, character work.
That might have been the weirdest thing you've ever done, Max.
Well, you know what's funny is that was my Liverpool accent. And recently, yesterday, I posted a video on the Art Kel socials of me playing guitar as an 8-year-old, playing Beatles songs. And my accent has actually gotten worse over the years. Like as an 8-year-old, it sounded kind of like Paul McCartney, but now it's gotten way worse. Lauren pointed that out to me immediately, that my accent, because I'm notoriously very bad at doing any impressions.
Well, when you're younger, you're more like a sponge. So it's easy to learn accents and languages.
That's right.
And less self-conscious.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, now the whole world, or at least our listeners of the pod, have heard your Liverpool accent as an adult. Also, joining us for the 100th time, or actually maybe 99th. There was an episode you weren't on because Max had the nut on.
Oh, that was brutal, man.
Let's not bring it up.
Well, Max, you do want to talk about grudges in this episode.
Yeah.
But joining us for the 100th time in our hearts, our pop culture aficionado, Shane Christian Cunningham. Shane, what's going on?
Hello, mates. How's it going, you blokies?
Guys, today on the episode, our featured guest is Ed Robertson from the Barenaked Ladies, a Canadian institution, legends in this country, and it was a great conversation, and we're going to get to Ed in a bit. But before that, there's so many people that we want to kind of quickly thank off the top who have been instrumental in making this pod a reality for us and obviously for all of you listeners. That is the man at the top that kind of made this happen. Max and I pitched him in his office, and that's why we were doing this, and it is the Mike on Much podcast, and that is Justin Stockman. Also, the beloved webmaster Dan, who is amazing. What'd you call him?
Webby D.
Webby D. Mike McShane, who is the guy that's been sending us on trips, whether it's Coachella or Just for Laughs or Oceaga. Greg Stewart, who a lot of the interviews that you hear take place in his office right here at 299. He sets those up. He is the absolute best. Sarah McLaren, who obviously is amazing and also sent us to Just for Laughs, and her team, Adam Slynn. She's been instrumental, obviously, in helping us out and getting us some really amazing guests on the comedy side. There's a sort of a platoon of people that mix this podcast every week for us. Matt, Liz, Danny, David, thank you guys. You guys, people that are listening to us, you obviously would not be hearing the nice crisp sounds of our voices without their magic on the mixer. Of course, manager Ash, who, although she came into our lives as your manager, Max, I feel like she's now basically just...
she's the pod manager, too, now. Yeah.
Honestly. Jenna, Gregory, who does all of the doodles that you guys see every week. And Tara Paquette, who does all the lettering and puts it all together for everything that you guys see on the YouTube pages, and then also that we Instagram and tweet. And finally, Shane and I have a boss. His name is Randall Graham. And if he didn't sort of kindly look the other way when Shane and I every once in a while slip out to do this side job, we wouldn't be able to do it. So it's nice to have a cool boss and creative director that fully supports us.
You know, you list all these names, and it becomes very clear that I do the least amount of work on this podcast out of anybody.
Oh, you know what? We should also thank the Nut. Come on, guys.
The Nut.
He's a big part of this, no?
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
So thank you to everybody that we just listed. You guys are amazing, and biggest thanks you of all, which I'm sure will thank you at the end, is to anybody that listens to this thing. So the listeners, thank you guys, because if you guys didn't listen to it, we'd just be like a tree falling in the forest.
It's true.
Exactly. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so 100 episodes. Guys, what do you want to talk about? Max, you're the producer. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, well, normally if I was like in the room with you, I'd want to get really sentimental and we could have a good cry over everything we've accomplished. I don't think the Champagne Boys do anything better than pat themselves on the back when it comes to our our individual and collective accomplishments. We really like to do that, especially, you know, on a Friday night, like after 11 p.m., after we've all had a few drinks, we really like to get into it. So we'll save that episode for when I'm home. But, you know, I've been touring around the UK, and we had an amazing day in Belfast. And if anybody's thinking about going to Ireland, I highly recommend you check out Belfast. Fascinating city, the history there and the politics and sort of the violence that occurred between the Catholics and the Prods, as they say. It was kind of existed for a very long time, and I didn't really know anything about it until I took the tour. So I was thinking about the idea of just people holding grudges. And then, we have Ed Robertson on the show with the Barenaked Ladies, and famously, Stephen Page is not in the band. I was just thinking about the idea of band members leaving and grudges being held. So I was thinking it might be kind of interesting to talk about the idea of grudges, and if there's any, and how, I don't know, you guys think about, grudges that you hold and what it would take to get over a grudge.
Wow.
So I guess my first question to you guys, we don't have to get into details about specific people or anything like that, but would you say that you are a forgiving type, or are there things that really you'll hold on to and because you just can't get over it, like a personal slight? And by the way, I don't mean to compare what's gone on in the Barenaked Ladies to what happened in Belfast. Those are two very different things. People are going to be like, did he just compare Belfast to the Barenaked Ladies? That's not what I mean. And even talking to Ed Robertson, he seems to be, and you met Stephen Page. They both seem to be very kind of gregarious, sweet guys. And clearly something happened there.
It was the cocaine, right?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, if something happened in the past, like people fuck up all the time, and people can do each other wrong all the time, and that's like, I think, a part of life. But how you choose to deal with that, and if you want to get over it or not, is sort of the next part of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think for me, I don't really hold grudges. I can't think of a grudge that I've held for a long time, or like, I don't know, like I've definitely had confrontations like with my friends or my family, but I can't think of any long-standing grudge, just because I think philosophically I don't think it serves a purpose. Like if I'm spending time thinking about something I'm angry about or an issue I've had with somebody, then I'm not spending time doing things that I actually enjoy or things that make me feel good. Like I don't get off on this sort of the anger that one can have and holding on to that. Like it doesn't make me feel good to feel angry about something. So I don't have any grudges that I can think of.
Yeah, well, this is the thing about it's so. This is why the idea kind of fascinates me a little bit, because it's a really powerful thing. I think that people can experience.
Well, I mean, are you holding any current grudges, Max? How are you on that sort of spectrum of holding on to those sort of slights or feuds with somebody?
I think I'm pretty good, but if I'm being truly honest with myself, there's probably a couple in there that I'd be embarrassed to even say, but I'm sort of like holding on to for no really good reason, And yeah, there's probably some shame that comes with that. What about you, Shane?
I'm mostly grudgeless. Yeah, I'm very forgiving. Like if I'm ever in any sort of thing with anyone or have been in the past and they say sorry, I'm just totally forget about it. People think the Nut and I have real grudges going on, but mostly there's like a seed of truth, but it's mostly for comedic purposes.
Sure.
Because the Nut and I are actually friends. Some people think we're not friends, but we are.
Well, I think like a strong sign of friendship is when you write a diss track about somebody that everybody can get and is readily available.
Well, have you heard the song? Not only is it catchy, but it's hilarious. Download the track, guys. There's one takeaway from this 100th episode. It's called The Nutcracker, by the way, available on iTunes.
Well, you know what? I think you touched on something there, Shane, which is this idea of apologizing. And some people, I think, just generally have a hard time apologizing. And if people just acknowledged each other and just said, hey, look, I'm actually really sorry. And that probably opens doors in ways that are incredibly helpful that, a lot of people just can't bear to do because they have too much pride. Did any of you guys listen to this Sam Harris, Ezra Klein debate that sort of took over the podcast world last week?
I missed that one. Who are those people?
Never mind. It's not worth getting into.
So to wrap up this grudge thing, if you're holding one, if there's someone out there that you're beefing with for, in honor of the 100th episode, let it go.
Let it go.
It's not worth it.
Yeah, I agree.
That goes for you too, Max, and those 3 grudges you have out there that you're ashamed of.
It's true. They consume more of my time than I'd want. So yeah, I'm That's good advice to take. Okay, but I really miss out on things going on at home with the Champagne Boys, and of course, I missed your big diaper party, Shane. And I haven't talked to you about it yet. I got a report from Dan and Greg about it. They said it was the fucking best time ever. He said everybody was out in full effect. All the people that never party anymore were out there partying. And your speech that you wrote in the next morning was really heartfelt. So what was it like for you, Shane?
Well, people can see that speech on the Instagram. I don't think it was that heartfelt.
So for anyone that's maybe new to this, because they were like, hey, Ed Robertson, or 100 episodes, I need to listen to this for the first time. Shane had a big diaper party because he has a baby on the way, little baby Lucy, his daughter. And so my brother threw this big party for him on the weekend. Max, but I want to know, were you following along? We missed you, by the way, Max. We wish you were there. The only thing missing was you and a couple of the other guys from the band. But were you following along on Instagram?
Of course I was. Yeah, I almost tried. It almost hurts me too much, actually, to follow too closely, because then I just, I'm jealous that I'm not there. But it looked like it was great. Everyone was wearing cool shirts. I saw stepdad Brad wearing one of my blue Hawaiian shirts or flower shirts. Someone must have gone upstairs.
Yeah, he was very proud to be wearing that. Yeah.
I heard John was
good.
there.
It was my first time drinking in 8 months. My father-in-law John was there. It was very surreal to be drunk again. I had forgotten totally what that sensation was like. And I was a little panic-ridden when I realized I was drunk and kind of trapped in that drunk world. But I was happy that the next morning I wasn't as hungover as I thought I was going to be, because that was my big nightmare scenario. And again, like I have a broken ankle right now, or fractured ankle. So that was a concern, because I thought I was going to get so loose, I was just going to dance my ankle back into a worse place than it's healed so far. So
our night ended at Burrito Boys, and actually somebody named Tor on Instagram DM'd us because like our night ended at 3 a.m. in Burrito Boys, and I guess some people that were watching our story thought that you were so drunk you had to be carried.
Yeah.
You clarified the next day.
Well, because you kept saying to me, you were like, Shane, can I post this?
Well, I did.
I was like, yes. And you're like, well, are you cool with this? And I didn't really see the big deal, because I was like, most people in the pod, at least in my mind, think, oh, I have a broken ankle. But some people might not know that. So for the people who don't know that, I just look like this crazy drunkard who's like literally legless, and I need people to hold me up. So in the morning, I had to clarify that I actually wasn't as drunk as it seemed. I was only being propped up by two guys because I have a fractured ankle.
I talked to Dan on the phone. By the way, I have about daily calls with Dan. It's good. He fills me in on everything going on. And I had a question. I was like, what would it take for the Champagne Boys to get back into partying shape of 2011, 2012? Like where this kind of event would happen once a week. Is that ever possible?
Oh, yeah. Like mass divorce. Like when you're single, you're going to party. It would take a massive scandal where like 8 of us would become single at once.
It's just hard, I think. It's like you're too busy. You can't drink like that all the time because you don't get anything done. Like you're kind of out of commission, or at least I am the next day. Like if I go hard, then next day is literally just me watching movies for the next 8 hours. But I did want to mention, because Shane mentioned I asked if I could post stuff. On my way down to the party, I didn't know if we'd be putting this on like the Mike and Much Instagram, because I'm like, I don't know if he wants to share this with the world or whatever. So I just texted him, we going to be broadcasting your diaper party on the Mike on Much social media. I go asking because I'll start a thing now. If we just want it to be a party for us, not some social media thing, I'm more than down with that too. And then Shane writes back, yeah, man, we can. My family can go fuck itself. And then in brackets, he writes, I've been drinking. So that's why anyone that follows our Instagram got to see the shenanigans that night as we devolved into debauchery. And we actually needed those diapers by the end of the night. I don't know how many.
Oh, yeah. Home. Well, especially I hadn't had any cheese, sugar, or bread until that night.
Wow.
And the nut who's not eating bread was just taking all the cheese off of the slices and then leaving the slices in the box.
It was disgusting. It just looked gross.
What a move. I want to start making sure these kinds of events happen more often. Like I know people are married. I know people are having kids. But it's got to be twice a month, I think, where everyone really commits to it.
At least once a month.
But let's aim for twice, knowing that it'll probably end up being
Aim
once.
for twice, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a yearly vacation thing, right? Like, didn't you sanction that, Mike?
Yeah, well, my big thought was, so what we've done traditionally is like whenever somebody's gotten married in our group as we get older and settle down, we always go on a huge bachelor party. We've been very lucky to like go to one of these things. So once a year, as people have gotten married, we've gone on these trips. We went to Miami for Sean and Peak. But the thought was, I was actually I was on my honeymoon, and I ran into these two older guys. They were probably like in their 60s. And they said to me, as we said we were on our honeymoon, they said the one thing you need to do as you get older, now that you're married, is it's like, he said, never stop going on vacation with your friends. Like, you know, have your marriage, but you need to always go. And I started thinking like, oh yeah, I'm like, as everyone sort of slowly gets married, there's not going to be a reason to go on a big trip or a bachelor party. Like, we always kind of needed a reason to go away somewhere, get on a plane. So I thought it would be awesome if no matter what, once a year, we all just go on a vacation together. Like, is that so crazy to like go spend like a long weekend somewhere fun?
I love this idea. And also we could just parlay this all into divorce parties too, because inevitably that would be coming up as well. I've actually already been on one of those. I won't mention the person's name, but there was a trip down to Texas that occurred under that. So yeah.
And I was so crushed that I missed it because you guys went to a Spurs game in San Antonio.
Yeah, that's right.
Where was I? I didn't go to that divorce party. I don't know.
It was a smaller one.
Yep. Yeah. Now Shane's going to hold a grudge against you, Max, for not inviting him.
I just need an apology and then I'm over it.
Just apologize, Max, and we can move on. Okay, before we get to Ed Robertson, guys, what do we want for the next 100? I mean, we're not making a huge deal out of this 100th episode thing because really we want to do 100 more. And so this is just another episode, hopefully, in a long line of them. And we're doing this again in 100 and more. But what do you guys want to see for the future? I'm kind of springing this on you. We didn't pre-production
No, that's okay.
this at all.
I just want kind of more of the same. I just want, and more live shows. We're going to work on that, and more people, more listeners telling their friends to listen because I don't know. This is this kind of exercise gives me energy. You know, there's certain things in your day that tire you out, and then there's certain things that just get you excited, and this always gets me excited. So just more of the good stuff.
Yeah, I just want to have the pod become bigger and better always, and just become better storytellers and get the chemistry. Like, if it's possible to get any better than it is, I think it's pretty good. But I just want it to be like by 200, it would be amazing if we had 10,000 Instagram followers or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I do look at that as a barometer for success, right? Like Instagram growth and all that.
Or just like pod listeners.
I thought you said Instagram girls.
Yeah, those two. And I'd like a sponsor.
Yeah.
Like, I want a mainstay sponsors.
MeUndies.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this is, like you said, Max, this is something that, like, gives us energy, doesn't drain energy. I would like us going forward, just listening to sort of people respond on Twitter. I'd like to start knocking out a few more of these, even when we don't have a feature guest. You know, maybe we just kind of start releasing pods where we talk. Maybe that's something people be into, like, more frequently, because I find too, because we're recording, we're trying to do once a week, but sometimes we don't. Like, we're missing a lot, like, of shit that happens that we could be talking about that's funny or weird or anything like that. So it's like, let's start knocking out more.
Let's do more. Okay, actually, that's the move. I think we just do more of them. These are fun. These are just catch-up phone calls anyway. So let's do more of these just hang pods.
Whether we have a feature guest or not, let's just start doing them. Maybe that's our mandate for the next 100.
I'm down, man.
You down with that, Max?
I'm down. Count me in.
All right, guys. Let's get to Ed Robertson, our 100th guest. This is a great interview. This actually took place at the Junos. And did you know Ed? Were you friends with Ed before, Max?
No, never. I just got his email, and I just sent him a note, and he got right in touch immediately and set it up. But he couldn't be a nicer guy. Like, I've loved that band forever. So it was very exciting for me.
Well, it made me end up going back down a rabbit hole, and no joke, for 2 weeks after the Junos, it was the only thing on like my Apple Music was BNL, like on repeat. Like, Shane, I was coming into work, I was like citing lyrics. We were talking about it.
I was doing the same, and I think everyone, whether they interviewed Ed Robertson or not, was doing the same, just because Barenaked Ladies were so hot after that reunion.
Yeah, they were awesome, and we did this interview, and we were right, like, kind of in the bowels of the GM play. I can't remember the play, the Rogers Arena, right?
Yeah, Rogers Arena.
And we were lucky enough to go watch Soundcheck, which was kind of a magical thing. I think I touched on this on the other pod, but man, there was like a real moment there where we weren't allowed to film, and I didn't know if I'd be able to like kind of go. Like, I know you can go anywhere. You were playing the Junos, but when we walked in. They were, for the first time ever, standing on stage, Steven and Ed, because they were obviously getting like a Lifetime Achievement Award, Canadian Hall of Fame. and we watched them do If I Had $1 Million together, and their two voices were together for the first time in 10 years. And I feel like everybody at that rehearsal, there's probably like maybe 50, 75, 100 people milling about, all just kind of stood and watched that moment.
Yeah, there's an alchemy to those two guys singing together that is just unmatched. It's amazing. You know, I saw them when I was 15, maybe. I went to Guelph with my parents and my sister, and we saw them perform. And I listened to them all the time. I jammed their songs when I first started learning how to play guitar, and yeah, and seeing them all together on stage was like I was kind of like nervous for them. It was one of those things. I'm like, oh my God, like how's it gonna go? And it was like riding a bike. It was as if you know, they did this yesterday. So it was cool.
Well, Steven won't perform If I Had $1 Million without Ed.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Wow.
But Ed will do it without Steven.
Where'd you learn that, Shane?
Oh, I was deep diving them like crazy. And Steven also won't do Chickadee China alone.
He won't do. Oh, really?
No, I don't know that part. I just like saying Chickadee China. I'm not even sure if that's the song title. It's like Ba Wada Ba.
It's called 1 Week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that Kid Rock song is called Ba Wada Ba.
I know.
I like that Kid Rock somehow managed to weasel his way into our 100th episode. All right, on that note, you guys want to get to our conversation with the delightful and kind Ed Robertson?
Let's get to it.
We actually have a mutual friend, Jules Fitzsimmons.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes, Jules Casting.
Yeah.
Yeah, in my day job, I like write and direct commercials.
Okay.
And we use her for everything. And,
Well, Jules, put me on my first TV show.
That's
She's
right.
Totally awesome.
Yeah. Is that the one you were? Well, you're a pilot, so is that the one where you were?
Yeah,
going on?
but it was her that went to Toronto Island and talked to the airport manager and said, hey, we're looking for a charismatic young pilot. And the guy was like, well, Ed Robertson just got his license here. And so she hooked me up with the producers, and we've been friends ever since.
Oh, and that's how you guys met.
Yeah.
Man, there you have it. Mm-hmm. Still flying a lot?
No, I thought I'd be flying a lot more, but I sold my plane a couple of years ago.
Wow.
And I thought I would miss it, and I haven't really. I've been super busy, but it's busy to be good. I mean, I don't think that works.
That one doesn't
Irish
work.
saying or
Yeah,
something.
keep flipping it. Yeah. Was there a particular reason you sold it?
Because I got offered more money than I paid for it.
Really? It was that simple?
Yeah.
Because I would have assumed it would have just been a passion that you just wanted to do, like golfing or anything else.
I have to point out, I don't golf, and I hate golf. And
Me too.
More than hating golf, I hate people who talk about
Oh,
golf.
my God. We have a drummer that golfs, and I don't care about it.
I hate it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Hate drummers.
please tell me about how off your shot is. I want to hear how you're hooking or slicing or whatever the fuck you're doing. No, what happened was I wasn't flying a lot.
Okay.
And I thought I have to fly more because if you don't fly a lot, you're a crappy pilot. So
Sure.
I forced myself to fly a bunch more, and I did my instrument rating. And I thought, okay, now that I'm instrument rated, I'm going to just fly way more. And then a guy walked out into the parking lot who was a plane dealer, and he said, oh, I've just had a deal fall through. I need a plane exactly like yours yesterday. And I was like, I don't want to sell it. Just did my instrument rating. And he offered me more money than I paid for it. And I said, sold.
Yeah.
And I thought I would replace it right away, but it was 2.5 years ago, and I haven't really missed it.
Time passes, and then you're like,
Yeah.
I think I'm done with that.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I kind of wanted to start because you have a reputation. It precedes you of being a very gregarious and kind person.
I don't know where that comes from.
Yeah.
I'm
I know the real Ed. No,
I'm
actually,
moody. Anything will set me off.
Well, assuming you are kind and those aren't just rumors, I guess the question is like, where does that come from?
It comes from crippling insecurity that someone will think poorly of me.
Still, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a blue collar Southern Ontario working class kid thing.
Yeah.
It comes a little bit from being, maybe painfully aware of how fortunate I am to have had the career that I've had. And I just, I've sort of thought right from the beginning of my career that if you're nice to somebody, they'll tell 10 people, and if you're shitty to somebody, they'll tell 50 people.
Yeah.
So
Oh, interesting.
I just try to be nice because I remember all the people that were nice to us when we were coming up.
And do you remember the people that were shitty?
I really remember the people.
Right?
that were
Yeah.
shitty.
It's funny
And
how that
lucky for
works.
us, there weren't that many.
Yeah.
Really. But that's that's largely because we were kind of in the driver's seat very early. We went from opening for a few bands to headlining very early on. And we were lucky. We had a road crew that had really been around the block a lot. They had toured with a lot of big acts. And Robin Billington was the first guy we ever hired. He was our sound man. He's mixed every Barenaked Ladies show since 1990, I think.
Wow.
So, and he was, even then a seasoned touring guy. He toured with Andrew Cash and Pursuit of Happiness, and like Pursuit opened for the Eurythmics and stuff in Europe. Like, he'd done a lot of touring.
You caught a veteran like right away.
Yeah, we got a veteran, and he brought other veterans on board, and he sort of set the tone for our crew, and our crew was super professional and super nice, and they hammered into us right from the beginning. Be nice to everybody on the way up because you're going to see them on the way down.
Yeah.
And it sort of set the whole tone for the organization.
Well, going back to that sort of, like you said, you went from a couple opening slots to headlining and this explosion. When you set out to make music, did you have sort of a single-minded ambition? You know what I mean? Like, were you like, the goal is to get on that stage and start playing arenas from the start? Or were you like, we just like fucking around making music and maybe it'll happen?
Definitely more the latter, because I think as a young teenager, I wanted to be that guy in the arena rock band. I was a massive, like, Max Webster and Rush fan.
Yeah.
And arena rock was, like, where I saw myself, And then you sort of, for me anyway, I was like, okay, that's not realistic. I'm going to start studying for the first time in my life and try and actually get into university. And
so you're pragmatic about it. You're like, I'm going to.
Well, kind of, yeah. And that's when I started making music with Steve, was when I kind of gave up the dream. It was like, okay, I'm going to stop trying to write rock hits and do something that's really fun with a guy who I think is smart and funny. And we're going to make 4-track cassettes in our bedrooms that make us laugh. And that's what we started doing. And I just remember like feeling so much, all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is fun. I'm not trying to make it anymore. This is really fun.
There's no pressure anymore, right?
Right. And then we started doing a lot of club shows. We were getting really good response, but we got turned down by every major label. And so I thought, okay, well, this is never going anywhere, but it's more fun than anything else I've ever done with music. So I'll keep doing it and I'll just go to school. And I did. So I really kind of, it was like the point when I gave up was the point when I started doing Barenaked Ladies, thinking it would only amuse the two of us.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought because the career you have and the performer that you are is the best version of yourself. And it would be, just from watching you guys since I was a kid, it would be weird to think of you as like a big, like, macho arena rocker. Like, at the end of the day, you are kind of who you are. And the guys that are macho arena rockers, they come by that, honestly.
Yeah,
because
true.
it's authentic to them.
Yeah.
And the thing that's authentic to you, because I remember with our band, if we were opening for like a cooler, like indie Toronto band, I'd be like, okay, I got to act like them. And I try to mimic them, or that, because I thought it might please their audience. But then it was just like, no, that's just a lame version. And people in the crowd could see I probably wasn't being...
They can smell it.
They can smell it, right?
When we were playing in the Toronto clubs, I was so... Like, we worshipped the Rheostatics. They were like...
cool band.
Yeah, they were the cool band. They were making art rock that was like mystifying to me. We would do shows with them and I would just be like so blown away. I was so into their records. When we put out Gordon, I was listening to whale music 24/7. Like, for me, when I think about that period, I actually think about whale music, not about Gordon.
Your own record.
That's what was going on for me musically at the time. And the ladies shows at the time were just like pandemonium. Yeah. It was so crazy. But for me musically, I was like super into the Rheostatics. And so then when we started headlining big sold out arenas, we brought the Rheostatics out to open for us. And I'll never forget, like, their whole show changed. And it was like,
wow,
they were trying to be a big arena rock band. Like, they changed the way they approached the show, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And it was like, I could see that for them, they still had this image of like what you're supposed to do when you play in an arena. Now, that was one time we played with them at the PNE, but it made me think about that thing where you envision what you're supposed to be and you try to be that, and it just doesn't work.
At the end of the day, you just have to be the best possible version of yourself. And as soon as you try to start doing anything else, then...
Well, and if you've seen the Rios lately, I've seen a couple shows they've done in Toronto, and of course, Kevin and our band's playing with them now. It's so great. Yeah. And it has to be that fearless art rock, not afraid to fall on its face. That's what's beautiful about them. You know?
Well, you mentioned that you sort of were, once you sort of let go and you were making music you thought was fun, you stopped having this sort of single-minded ambition. Did you find that Steven was more ambitious that way, or was he kind of doing the same thing as you, or did he sort of feel like we need to make it?
No, I think we both really kind of resonated in that way. I think we thought that, it's funny because I think people think about Barenaked Ladies now and they think, oh, the band is that huge band from the early 90s and they're very middle of the road and very, lots of radio hits and blah, blah, blah. But we were really weird. Like, Gordon's a weird record. Yeah. And we were a weird band.
Well, you've seen the videos, just like scrappy weirdos dancing around. Like, no one else really looked like that or was singing those kinds of songs.
We desperately needed a stylist. And it was a band with like Montuno rhythms and 5-part harmony and weird stuff going on, And I think that part gets a little bit overlooked by all but really nerdy music fans.
Right.
So it's interesting to me to look back on our career and think, wow, the album that really broke us in Canada was a really eclectic, strange record. And it wasn't like anything else that was going on at the time. Then I would say arguably we made a much more like radio-friendly record on the second record. And then we got weird again. And that's I think, where we're more comfortable is when we're being more daring and more just serving the song wherever it takes us and taking influences from all the members of the band who listen to radically different music.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a very liberating place to be and a band to be in, because people ask me a lot, like, oh, when are you going to do a solo record? It's like, I've never felt the need to do a solo record because every idea I've ever had has worked great in Barenaked Ladies.
Well, with that, we were doing some research on the band, and if you kind of suss through like the Wikipedia, it's like, Gordon was a hit, and then the next one, the band wasn't sure, and then Stunt was a hit, and then Maroon didn't do quite as well. In the moment, are you feeling that pressure? Are you thinking, oh shit, this is not living up? Or are you thinking, nah, some records are going to be big, some records aren't going to be as big? Like, how did you process that in the moment?
At the time, I was probably pretty wrapped up in it.
Yeah.
But
like looking at numbers.
When you look at it now, Maroon was a failure at 2 million copies.
Yeah,
sold.
Exactly.
And Pinch Me is like a huge song, right?
Yeah. It's a huge song. It was a huge radio hit for us. And for me, the recalibration I've had to do in like to make any sense of our success is like you kind of got to take Stunt out of the equation. It's this weird
anomaly.
thing.
It's an anomaly.
It's an anomaly.
Yeah.
We sold 6 million records that year. We had a #1 hit and several other top 10 hits in America. It was beyond huge. We were at the Grammys, we were at the World Music Awards, we were at the Billboard Awards, we were on all the shows. Like, we were that band for a couple of years in America. And now we're in this place where we're not on the radio. Like, we're not, well, nobody's really selling records like they used to, but we're certainly not selling records like we used to. And yet somehow we go out and we play to 100,000 plus people in America every year still. We go out and do a summer tour for 6 or 8 weeks, and 100,000 people come.
The people are there.
Yeah. It's like we did all that work over the years to build up this incredible fan base. And now I feel like I just, our mantra over and over again is like, all we got to be is good. You know, like we got to make good songs. We got to make good records. We got to do good shows because there's people out there that give a shit. Like, even though we're kind of off the radar, it's like,
you built something real, right?
Yeah. And it's like, even at a tenth of what it once was, it's still 20 times bigger than
you could have ever imagined in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think we have time for one more. What do you think, Mike?
One more, and then we wrap it up.
We got time for more than that. Jesus. It's just a Juno rehearsal.
Well, we were going to ask about Greg Kurstin, who's
ask.
fucking
that was
blown up. You know, this guy is working with everybody, and he obviously filled in for Kevin when you guys. Was there something did you know, this dude's special, and could you see the future?
Anyone who spends 30 seconds with Greg Kurstin knows that dude is special. He opened for the band for a lot of shows. He had a band called Gegita, and they opened for us in America in 95-ish. They had a hit at the time on college radio. All I want to do is to thank you, even though I don't know who you are. You let me change lanes while I was driving in my car. That was the song. And he and the other guy, Tommy, and a friend of mine, Darren Hahn, played drums in that band. And they were so good. They were so great every night. And Greg he was so insanely musical. We really hit it off, kept in touch. So we were playing arenas and big amphitheaters. We were opening for Bryan Adams in Germany, and huge arenas sold out, 32-day tour. And Kev got sick again.
Yeah.
Greg came in, flew from LA and met us, I think, in Denver. 15,000 people at the show. Greg learned our entire 2-hour set. He went to the dressing room, put on headphones, and watched the video from the night before, and learned the guitar solos, all the piano parts, and all the vocal harmonies for a 2-hour set in 3 hours.
It's like a savant.
And then did the show that night.
That's amazing.
Guitar solos, like note for note. Like, it was nuts.
That's brilliant.
He's incredible, and he's just an absolute sweetheart, and he's a musicologist. And we also he had a band called Action Figure Party, and we brought them out on tour. Actually, when we had Sarah Harmer and the Proclaimers opening for us in the U.S., we had Action Figure Party out on the concourse.
Proclaimers.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Okay, one more question. That's okay,
Yeah.
Christina.
Two more
questions.
Two more, yeah, all right.
We were talking about, because I'm always thinking about band dynamics and how you keep the thing afloat. And it seems like, the four of you have great chemistry. What would you attribute your kind of communication style and just sort of what has made that successful in keeping the partnership together? What qualities would you attribute to that?
Well, I think that when Steve left the band, I kind of became more of like the de facto front guy.
Yeah.
And I think it was really great for the other guys when I love featuring the other guys. And I think we feel more like a 4-piece unit now. And like it used to be the Steve and Ed show, and then there were the other guys back there.
Sure.
And I think the way the dynamic changed, it opened up a little bit more space for everybody. And I think, this is me maybe overthinking it, but I think the fact that I just didn't fill up all that extra space and left a lot of room for the other guys, I think that made everybody feel more attached to what we're doing.
Yeah, just empowering them.
Yeah. Kevin has like really come to the table as a writer and as a player, and he knows how much I appreciate what he brings to my songs. And in fact, we co-wrote 3 songs on the last record. And I don't know, like any relationship, communication is really the only thing that matters. And we've been very deliberate about communicating these last 10 years. And it's made the whole environment better and healthier and easier to attach to. You know, it's really easy to get mired in dysfunction, and I certainly don't mean to pin that on Steve. Like, when I say that, I'm not saying, oh, when Steve was gone, everything got better. It just, you know, we were in a weird place, and the band we just weren't communicating well. And when we parted ways with Steve, there was a very concerted effort to, like, okay, why are we doing this? Why do we actually want to keep doing this? And how are we going to do it in a way where everybody's happy and proud of this?
Would it have been hard to have that conversation before Steve left the band? Like, or is that just like an impossible thought to get to?
Yeah, I think at the time it was an impossible thought to get to.
Yeah.
And deciding to continue as a four-piece was a difficult and deliberate thing. So it forced us to reassess everything about the band. Sure. It's like, okay, well, we're going to have a lot stacked against us trying to continue this thing as a four-piece. Everybody will be questioning why we're doing it, if we can do it, all this stuff. So if we're going to do that, like, let's make everything about it better.
Yeah. Well, for you, you said, you know, it was the Steve and Ed show, and then it became more of a cohesive four-piece. Did you have any, like, sort of fear about, shit, like, now I'm going to sort of be in the front here, you know,
Totally.
Just aesthetically for the fans?
It was nerve-wracking for a while, and we really overthought it.
Yeah.
And there was a long period where it was very stressful. And then, you know, the first show we did back as a four-piece was at Universal Studios in Florida in front of 14,000 people.
Wow.
And they had booked us when we were a five-piece. They were big fans. The promoters down there, they said, we totally believe in you guys. We know you can pull it off. But we didn't know we could pull it off yet. But we rehearsed. We brought in Michael Philip Voivoda, who produced a bunch of records for the band, and it was a longtime friend and collaborator. We brought him in. We rehearsed with him a lot. And we really overthought every aspect of it. When do we play certain songs? What do we say? Like, what do we... Every aspect of it, we thought about it. And then we got up on stage, and we realized we're the only ones that care about this. Yeah. Like, there's a huge audience of people out there that do not fucking care. They don't give a shit. They want to hear the songs they like. They don't even know what I look like, you know? And it was liberating. It took a big weight off our shoulders. And like I said, we got to, so we just got to be good. We got to earn people's faith in us when they come to the show. We never mail it in. We have never, ever mailed it in. We try hard every time. And, you know, we just don't take it for granted that we're still here all these years later.
If we deliver, they'll show up.
Yeah. And they did show up, so we're going to deliver.
Perfect way to end it.
Yeah, it ties it all together.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Anything else,
No, this is awesome.
You
Thank
gotta
you. I
go
really
rehearse,
appreciate
man.
it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Seriously, saw you in 2003 at Hillside Conservation Area in Guelph.
Oh yeah,
Danny Michelle opened the show.
yeah. That was the roof
fundraiser.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oddly, I remember every show.
Yeah.
Do
You
you
know,
have that
I
too?
kind of have.
If people will give me like one detail, I'm like, oh yeah, that's when this thing happened.
Wow.
Like, okay, I know that, but why do you know that?
Yeah.
For the 100th time, welcome to The Dessert. We are joined, of course, by our pop culture aficionado, Shane Christian Cunningham. Shane, what do you have for us?
As you know, Mike and Max, I'm working on something pretty big. And if you're listening to this, it's not that something has gone wrong. It's that this project has taken over my life and I've somehow missed the deadline. So I'm recording this to not hold up this episode because it is the 100th episode. As you can see, Max can't see this, but we have legendary former Much Music producer C. Wong here right now.
Best commercial director in Toronto.
Yeah. What's up?
He is here because right after we wrap this dessert, Maxie, Shane is going to continue with this I think, really fascinating piece that he's working on. So, but if listeners, if you're hearing this, it means Shane's thing's not ready and it will probably be out for 101 or 102. Or you'll never hear this.
And I know, you see, you say you never hear this, but I think some listeners are like rolling their eyes like, oh yeah, this is another like bullshit thing that Shane said he's going to do and then he's not going to do it. It's going to get done, guys. I've been staying at work till midnight every night. I didn't watch the Raptors game last night. It was a rather crucial game and I didn't see one lick of it. And my entire weekend, I'm going to work on it from like morning till night and every night thereafter until it's done. So don't go saying it's not going to get done. Especially you, Mike. I want you to believe that.
I believe in you, baby.
You too, Siwon.
Believe in baby.
All right. These guys will fall for anything. But and again, I don't want to get too much into it. All I'll say is that there's some twists and turns going on that I hope are interesting to you, which I'm confident they will be. And I hope all these man hours I've been putting into this pay off. And I hope you're not even listening to this.
But get excited if you're hearing this, because it means that Shane's just working harder on this final piece that will come out.
And I am working on it. You know, I got a pregnant wife at home, and I'm here at work editing. So I'll leave it at that.
Wait, that's the dessert?
What, you want more than that?
I thought you had like a dessert in the chamber. That's just a tease, bro.
I don't give a shit.
That's it. That's all. That is our 100th episode in the books. Thank you so much to our listeners. Honestly, without you guys, like I said, we're just three guys talking to each other. So thank you for listening for 100 episodes, and hopefully you'll be listening to us for 100 more and with us for the journey. We really appreciate it.
You can find the Mike on Much podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Mike on Much. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you find your podcasts. Leave a comment in the ratings. And we thanked everybody off the top, so that's all I got for you.
We did.
Yeah.
The Mike on Much podcast is produced by Max Kerman. As always, we love having our pop culture aficionado join us for the journey, Shane Cunningham. Thank you for being here for 100.
Thanks for having me.
See you guys next week if we don't die on the weekend.